All right, well, welcome everybody to our Committee of the Whole work session today, Tuesday, July 16th. And we have our minutes from our June Committee of the Whole meeting attached to our agenda. And we're really pleased to have an update on child care initiatives here in Cook County. So I'm going to pass the microphone at this point in time to Allison and Grace and Nancy.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we're glad to be here this morning to give an update on where we're at with our child care programs. And I'll hand it directly over to Nancy, who is our licensor and community child care coordinator and really leading all of these wonderful initiatives that we're involved in as a department and in cooperation with our child care solutions subcommittees and partners throughout the community.
Thank you, Allison. I really can't stress enough how many people are a part of all of this work. I just get to be sometimes the face in front of it, but there's so many people like on our subcommittees and the providers just passionate about what we do and always giving input, and I so appreciate them because they really are leading and driving this work, letting us know what they need, letting us know what else is happening on in the county that maybe we should know about or maybe we can somehow support. So it really is just that collaboration, and that's the reason I drive up this shore in the most beautiful commute in Minnesota, but because of just the dedication of so many people that are in these communities to serve families and the children they have. So I have a little presentation to keep me on track, otherwise I could just tell you stories all day. So I'll try to keep us all on track here on, then I think I'm supposed to have this clicker. Please stop me if you have questions about this. I didn't want to just load slides up with data, but I have a bunch of data. And I'd be happy to send links if you think, hey, send me that report. I'd be happy to email them out to anyone else who is here, because there's a lot of work going on in the state of Minnesota also supporting what does this cost of care really look like? What does workforce look like for early childhood? Because as you know, we aren't the only people who are having this issue, right? And Minnesota is not the only state having this issue. This really is a hot topic all across the country. So we've been building here. I said that this, you will see there's some highlighted little twin pictures in here. Thank you, Grace. So I see some real Cook County faces. There's only one Lake County face in here. I just had to tell Sam. But so here are some Cook County little people, a little person. And the important thing that we've always talked about, I think, as we started this back in 2022, we started having conversations that August, is that we need to have a foundation to be able to really support, first of all, these strong early care and learning. That's the official title the state is giving child care, early care and learning providers. So we have a lot of our obviously county investments we'll talk about, and the state workforce investments that we try to take advantage of every chance that we get, so that we can retain the providers we have. We have excellent providers, and that we can recruit new providers or new workforce employees to be able to support our families. And then, although this isn't something we're really being able to actively address, we always want to be able to connect families to solutions. So that's part of what our department does. If anyone has childcare and they're trying to find childcare, they have questions about the childcare, they have questions about the funding, we also provide that service in human services to be able to connect those families and to be able to really know what our programs have, what might appeal to a particular family. And then eventually, hopefully, we like to be able to transition our programs to be able to really support those families better financially with the cost of care. So let's talk first about the wage enhancement program. Our initial goals were really to stabilize that workforce by subsidizing wages. We all know that there's a lack of funding for childcare, so how can we help to do that? Wage enhancement did that. I just kind of wanted to bring us back to what it started as. The average hourly wage for providers in 2022 was $15.30 an hour, which is almost $2 an hour more than it is statewide, than it was at that time statewide. So yes, the average wage in the state of Minnesota was 13 something. I can't remember exactly, but that's what it was. They've had to increase our wages to $15.30 because we just couldn't find anyone to work. So they're slowly having to increase those. So by adding in 2023, the wage enhancement was $5.79 an hour. that increased that scale to be the 2109, which was the recommended deed wage scale. So sometimes people ask me, like, where did we come up with that 579? That's where we came up with it originally. And then in 2024, we added a 3% cost of living increase to that. Now it is $5.96 an hour in 2024. So again, people ask me, and then that's where it came from. James, question?
Madam Chair. Yeah, quick question. Is that wage scale recommendation statewide, or are there regional differentials?
No, that's a statewide scale. There are not regional differences, although I will refer to it a little bit later. The legislator asked for a cost of care model. So essentially, what does it really cost a provider to provide care in a family child care home and in a child care center? And those reports just came out. I believe in March, and I have a link to that if you want that. And it does break it down by region and by provider type, how much it costs, and essentially what their hourly wage is, especially for a family child care provider that isn't receiving a direct paycheck, right? So we'll look a little bit at that later, what it said for our region for that. So here is the whole summary and impact of 2023. Last summer I came to see you and I told you the first half of the year. So this is where we ended up. Total was a little over $152,000 was invested from the fund balance to pay wage enhancement in 2023. When I was adding it up, I love to see that there's 35,684 total hours caring for kids in Cook County and Grand Portage. That's a big number. Lots of hours on the floor with little people. We added 8 full-time and 9 part-time providers to the workforce in 2023. So the program effects, this is something else that was in the Rural Policy and Development Report that said counties in northeastern Minnesota saw an average closure rate of almost 34% for family child care programs between 2021 and 2024. However, Cook County has retained all of our current providers, which is kind of an anomaly in the system. I meet quarterly with Northland Foundation and all the other licensors in our region, and then we give reports like, oh, this many closed, I have this many that are opening, and I never had to report that we have one that's closed. So I'm excited about that. That's a huge part of what we're trying to do. So the impact on families, we had an increase in 47 licensed childcare spots and an additional 45 children who were being served by those spots. Part of the discrepancy there, just so you know, is when I say we have licensed childcare spots, those also include school-age children, which school-age children may be in a different program somewhere else. It might be in an after-school program. We don't track that. But so we'll have more slots than necessarily having children served because those extra slots are for only school-age children. It has to do with capacities on licenses. So I wanted to just kind of throw a few pieces in here. These are a group of kids that were at Marie Conlon's. And she, when I was asking for some feedback, she just was so appreciative and just said that it's significantly helped her program. It's filled this income gap so that bills can be paid. All the costs for everything, as we know, are just like, just go to the grocery store. And then realize that you have to buy food to feed the children and your care, if all those costs go up, but you cannot pass those costs on to your families because they're stretched as much as they can possibly be. So I think the wage enhancement and some of the other grant incentive programs we have really been helpful for those providers. They're all very appreciative. And here are some of those other grants, just to remind us. As I was thinking about this presentation, thinking about what kind of questions might people ask you as you're out and about, like, hey, what about that childcare thing? So hopefully I can give you a little bit of a refresher, and always feel free to call me, and I'll dig information if you need. So in 2023, we had a $180,000 deed grant. We had a First Children's Finance grant for startup and expansions of $30,000, and the Northland Foundation Family Friend and Neighbor grant. That's a grant that we continue to have that helps to support those providers, which actually are the largest number of providers according to research in greater Minnesota caring for kids. Those are grandmas and grandpas, the aunt, the neighbor, however your friends, you're switching care back and forth. Those would all be family, friend, and neighbors. The teenagers you have come to your house to watch your kids in the summer. So we have dollars to be able to support them, get them supplies they need, buy them car seats, get them things, whatever that they need, and we provide social events for them to get together and have learning opportunities for kids as well. So here's some of those dollars in action, just in case. I'll send this out. You can have all those numbers yourself. But just, like I said, as I was thinking, if someone asks you, where do we spend that money? Here's where we spend that money. So at the YMCA, The First Children's Finance, we paid for new flooring in their infant room they needed to be able to open. We also provided over $20,000 in hiring bonuses to support their staffing last year, and a little over $11,000 for furniture and supplies for their infant rooms and to expand preschool and toddler rooms, more care. Grand Portage, Head Start, primarily our funding there came from the deed grant where we provided $30,000 in hiring bonuses to be able to incentivize their staff to join and stay. Those hiring bonuses for staff were for full-time staff, prorated for part-time staff, and they agreed when they received the bonus to continue to work on that program for at least a year or so. Northwoods Childcare, this is Hunter McLaurin's program over in the Congo Church. We used some of the First Children's Finance grant, as you can see. We also paid a $5,000 new provider incentive, which is a hiring bonus for people who starts program. And the deed grant also paid for their program signage, the signage they have out front there at the Congo Church. Now, Birch Grove Seedlings just was licensed last week. Yay! So, yeah, it was a little bit of a process. So, we used First Children's Finance grant dollars too. We paid for new flooring in their room that needed to be there. And so far, we've used deed grant for furniture and supplies. We'll also use some more of this new deed grant for some other cribs and things that they need to just expand that capacity. But they have everything they needed to be licensed. Yes, came from some of these grant dollars.
How many kiddos are signed up there?
I don't know how many are signed up. They really just got their license last week.
Yeah.
They are, in case you haven't heard, they really are trying to primarily serve this birth through 3 age group because we know we need care for infants and toddlers. So they are licensed. They can't take preschool kids, school age kids, but they are going to try. That's what their whole program is set up. It's really for infants and toddlers down in that Tofty area, which is greatly needed. Cooperation Station kind of went through a transition this last year with staff and a little bit of their model. First Children's Finance came in and helped us be able to negotiate that with the board. Not negotiate, but just kind of work through it, I guess, with the board and come up with a new model with their license. So we bought new furniture because they have a much younger group. They needed more cribs and furniture for younger children, and we also provided a $5,000 new provider bonus for their new provider who is doing a wonderful job at their program. So some other things that were a part of the deed grant were subsidized slot programs, which essentially takes some of that financial risk out for child care providers. It's also in this deed grant that we have now. But what that does is if you, for Hunter McLaurin, let's just say, because hers was one that was benefited from that, she opened her program. It takes a little while to get full, but your cost, like your budget says, you need to be full, but that's not happening day one, right? So what it does, let's say she started with 6 kids that were enrolled, but she's licensed for 10. So for up to a time limit, last time it was 6 months, it could be a slot. This year it's only 3 months, but we essentially pay an average rate for those slots so that the county is helping to subsidize those slots through the deed grant. And that was a part of that. So we used some of those. Maria Conlon expanded her license to add 2 more slots. Northwoods Childcare and then Cooperation Station changed their model and added slots. So we used those dollars for that from D. Trainings, we also provided training and cost hours for some CDA, which is a Child Development Associate for 6 providers here in town, and we paid out about $3,000 in mentorship stipends. Child care providers are invited every month. We do a Zoom meeting, a child care mentorship meeting on the 3rd Monday night, and to help respect and pay for their time, if they attended and are participating, then they get a $100 stipend that's paid for, again, quarterly by the county from the deed grant or from the Northland grant, whichever happens to be in effect. We also did the outreach that most of you have all seen, our Cook County North Star's website, advertising and print materials to help recruit new providers, and to let families know that they can contact PHHS if they're looking for child care solutions. Any questions about any of those? I know it's a lot, but
How far is the advertising about?
it's targeted for just Cook County. So they did some, it must be NPR stuff that was, you can geographically target, it's Cook County throughout. That should be all that it's in. And the social media stuff too, I don't understand all the dynamics behind it, but it's all in our Cook County area is what it's targeted for. And we do have grant dollars in the deed grant as well to expand that outreach and to do some more marketing, whatever it is that we want to do. So any feedback that you guys have seen or heard, please send our way as we start to. We haven't even developed what that's going to look like, but what we think.
The reason I'm asking about that is just as our program develops
Mhm.
and we have more capacity and more slots,
Mhm.
it'd be such a wonderful marketing campaign for our community to say, need childcare, we got it. You know,
Yeah.
sort of thing. We'd like get more families here.
Yes.
Or the schools or, you know, just,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I was actually at a family's house last night who's in Schroeder, and he was talking to me about, school's going to come up, and he has younger kids, like, do you send them to Silver Bay, or do you send them to Cook County? And I guess I hadn't really thought about it, like, I figured, oh, you're in Cook County, you have to send your kids there, but you don't, you could send them to Silver Bay, if you're way down in Schroeder. So that's a great idea. How can we help to promote keeping families within our county, not having them. But if you were a young family and you had kids and you couldn't find childcare here, that's pretty much a no-brainer. They have childcare in Silver Bay, right? So I'm sure people have made that decision, and we want to publicize that they have that option to stay in county. That's a great one. Thank you so much, Commissioner. All right. So here's a little picture. It's a little blurry. I don't know why. Probably from my phone. But this is a little picture of Hunter McLaurin's the inside of her childcare, and she just wanted to express her appreciation for the D grant, something you may not know that we were able to do with the D grant that most childcare grants are not able to do. The majority of childcare grants in the state, and even from like Northam Foundation, are only given to licensed childcare programs. So what do you do if you're trying to get licensed, but you don't have the thousands of dollars it takes to buy all of this furniture, all of these supplies? Because it's the licensor. When I come into your program, it has to be exactly like tomorrow the kids are here. It can't be like, oh, I'm going to get a crib. Nope, it has to be their setup. I have to be able to inspect it. So something the D grant dollars allowed us to do was to help. Obviously, programs we know are well along in the licensing process, so we have good faith that they're going to be there and open, but to be able to give them funds to be able to do that. And we actually order the stuff and have it delivered to them, to their sites. So with those D grant dollars, or First Children's Finance dollars, either one, both were used in most of these programs. Oh, look, there's some Lake County kids. Oh, those belong to me. Okay, so something I did want to bring out here, because I'm hearing this all over, is that I want to tell the county how appreciative I am that you have created my position, because it's unique. Other counties can't do that. Even when I go down to training and I go, yep, I'm the licensor, and then I also do this, they go, oh, we wish we had someone who could do that, because it is a big deal that this position is able to focus on childcare in a different way, in a way that we can help coach and we can help mentor childcare providers. Because actually, as one of the reports the state just did about the workforce, the number one thing that providers said that keep them in this business is high quality professional development and relationship-based coaching. So they have to feel, yes, the finances are important, but they also have to feel like people appreciate what it is they do, right? And that they have the tools they need to be able to do it better. Because we talk a lot, not just us, but all over, like we need high quality care. Well, they need to be able to feel like they can access things that help them to make their businesses better. When I first came here, Jared Swader, this was before I worked for the county, but Jared Swader called me up and said, all right, all my people need to have their CDAs. As part of that process, someone needs to come and observe them. And we spend like 4 hours observing, taking notes, working with them. He said, there is not a CDA professional I have found who will come to Grand Portage to do my observations. What am I supposed to do? No one will come because they have to be certified to come and observe. No one who is will come up here. So I said, well, I will be certified to do it. So we just put in so that I am a certified professional development specialist. I go and observe you now. You have your CDAs that you have to have for licensing or to meet Head Start requirements. You have to have that. But if we don't have someone who will come here, what are our programs going to do? So part of that is this position was able to do that. And because of this position, I've taken trainings that I can provide our own trainings right here, and they can get credit for that, which is unique in what we have, because honestly, it's just rare to get people. It's not far. They want to come on vacation here, but they don't want to come up here and work, I guess. So I'll come up and do the trainings. It's just far for them to drive. It just seems like a big commitment for them. So what we've said is, okay, fine. Then we'll just do our own training here, and we'll find out the different check boxes we need to do to make that count for our providers. And so I know that they appreciate that. And that they appreciate there's someone to advocate for them, someone to talk to the state for them, someone to be that intermediary between, hey, the state's changing the child care licensing rules. You should probably look at them and give them your input, because that's what they want. Because they're busy running their programs. They may not realize some of these things. So there's someone right here who does realize it, who will send it, hey, remind you to take a look at this. If you don't mind what the state does, then don't look. But if you do care about them changing the rules, you should take a look at this and let someone know what you think of it. So I know that they appreciate it, and I know that, like I said, it's unique into what most of the groups that I participate in. So thank you for allowing me to do this work.
I got you, Nancy.
Oh, well, yeah, it's awesome, awesome work. So this is a little tiny bit I wanted to share with you too, is that really Cook County is leading the way for lots of rural counties, especially in Minnesota. We have a lot of eyes looking at us to see what we're doing in childcare. There's been a lot of different opportunities that they've asked me to come and share what it is that we're doing across the state. In fact, I'm going somewhere down south. I just saw my calendar, I think in August, to speak again on behalf of First Children's Finance and that whole region about what we're doing up here as part of that Rural Child Care Innovation Program. I'll be speaking there. I've been, with 0 to 3, which is a national organization, spoken on some of their webinars and their workforce development too, sharing what it is that we did. All of you know I got to go to Phoenix and be a part of that workforce solution group to share on that panel about what we did. And the unique thing, people there were just amazed that our county would invest in childcare. There are other programs that are doing things and they are able to do things financially because of ARPA funds. And now those are not going to be there. Everyone is scrambling to say, well, how are we going to continue to be sustainable for this? So, barring, any Blandon foundations coming in and giving you millions of dollars, communities are just scrambling, trying to figure out how. And this may not work for them, but just to have an idea that there could be other creative ways that you could help to be able to, piece this together and keep your programs going. This week, we're starting to do some Zoom interviews for the documentary that the Build Initiative is doing across Minnesota, looking at how we're approaching solutions for early childhood. And so Cook County will also be featured in that. That will go out to a national audience for that. So we just have lots of people who have been looking and asking questions. And so it's really nice to kind of be on the edge a little bit of that innovation anyway. Oops, that's not the right one. So here's where we are so far in 2024. So in these first 6 months, we've spent a little over $89,000 out of the PHHS fund balance. The average monthly cost is about $18,000 so far. It's a little bit, the numbers are going to be a little bit more than 2023 for 2 reasons. We have Birch Grove and Cooperation Station fully in our program, when we did not have Cooperation Station last year and only partial Birch Grove. So that's a little bit, and we have more providers, more programs. We've had 2 new licensed programs open in Cook County. I had heard before I started this position, it takes months, and it does take months, and sometimes more months to get everything through DHS, but we're getting there. We've had 22 new childcare spots created in those programs this year, and we have another program that's also down in that Lutz and Tofty area that's in process of being licensed, Rose Nest Nature Play School. So just consistently, we have some stability. We've reported a total of 31 providers in our county pretty consistently for Cook County and Grand Portage, serving about 100 children right now. So that's where we are so far in 2024. Here's a bunch of Grand Portage children visiting the falls. And this was actually from Jared before he switched his position, but he just wanted to be appreciative to let you know that their providers appreciate being able to make a living wage and being able to do the things that they love, right? Working with kiddos. Because usually you kind of have to sacrifice. You can work with kiddos, you love that, but you're not going to make any money, right? We're not getting rich doing that. Here's what we have going on right now. For this year, we do have another deed grant. I think that Allison probably spoke that because it needs to be signed. The contract, so that's a $250,000 grant. And we'll continue some of our programs, but we're also looking to do a few new things. We've been talking about the senior, when we talked about the senior collaborative, also collaborations that have childcare programs co-located in housing units with that development. We're also looking at how we can better serve just hospitality industry in general. Do they need other hours besides traditional care or weekend care? Sometimes we say that and we find that's not really true. So I'm just wanting to start those conversations with hospitality and lodging. Let's talk to your employees. What do they really think they need? And then can we find a care provider who can meet those needs for them too, okay? You may have heard that we are also one of 7 sites in the state that's participating in the Mixed Delivery Action Lab. Connections with that was also what's called a pay parity work group. There's only 4 communities that were a part of that. We were one, and that's where the state is trying to see how they could equalize the wage difference between early childhood teachers who work in school districts and childcare and early childhood teachers who work elsewhere by subsidizing the difference, okay? So that's part of that. And this Mixed Delivery Action Lab is really what people can tell you. In fact, I have 2 parents right here who could tell you that when you send your child to a preschool at the public school, those slots are subsidized. Therefore, parents pay less. They pay on a sliding scale fee, or some don't pay at all, than what they can pay going to a provider in town. Mixed delivery looks at should we spread those subsidized slots out, so that there could be some at family care providers, there could be some in the public school, there could be some, Head Start has their own, subsidized things, but spread them out, so then families really do have a choice of where they want their kids to go, and it's not just financially based. So again, this is a pilot project from the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and MDE has taken the lead on that. So we're working on that through the summer. There'll be a report that comes out about that in November with us and the other 6 communities that we are a part of. And the Northland Foundation has given us 2 separate grants, a Family Friend and Neighbor, which is really state funding dollars coming through Northland, and then a child care mentorship program that we use to also support providers. So those are the things we have going right now. But I wanted to bring out the stars to say that our wage enhancement program really is a foundation for our success. And I know that that's where we started, and then we think, wow, we have all these other things. However, if we look at it, we are able to be successful in some of these other grants, especially this DEED grant, because they require matching funds. We get higher points because we have matching dollars. Not that we wouldn't be able to get funding without that, but we do get that because we get those extra points because the county has dollars that they're putting in. They have to be non-state dollars, so I couldn't count anything from the Northland Foundation. Those really came from the state as well. Or First Children's Finance, those really come from the state as well. They're just filtered through other organizations. But I know that our application is stronger, I've been told by DEED, because we do have our wage enhancement program, and I think everybody wants to see how well this succeeds and what we're doing, right? So they're kind of watching, let's give them extra funds and see if we can help for that. And as we wrap up, I just kind of wanted to bring us back. Last year we talked a little bit about sustainability as obviously our goal. We want to meet workforce and economic development needs, but we also want to remember that we need to meet the needs of families with young children. We do some of that by providing childcare. Then there's so much more work out there for us to do once we get this sort of stabilized. And these are important numbers I think we need to know. The cost of care providers in that report that was just released, it says that family care providers in rural Minnesota, their revenue is their net is about $28,000 a year. They make about $8.65 an hour for their average work week of 65 hours. So this is not a living wage anywhere, but certainly not in Cook County. So the majority of family care providers are in 2-income households, right? So that they're able to have an extra income to make their families work. A number that I saw in that report that to me was astounding was about 40% of family child care providers are eligible for economic assistance subsidies. So it's just mind-boggling, I think. But then again, look, there's a little bit more little people from Grace. The cost of care for families, this is in Cook County, is about $206 a week. That's averaging everything from infant to school age, but it's about a little over $10,000 a year per child. That's college tuition that we save for their whole life. But then you just have new babies. We're getting a new baby next month, and you just think, wow, bam, now you're gonna have to pay almost $11,000 a year to care for that new baby if you want both parents to work, right? That's a lot too. So we are hoping, as our team that works here together, to be able to, financially sustain essentially a 5-year pilot, so we can really show an impact. Something that happens, I think, with us, and so we have to be creative in it, is that we have small numbers. We have small numbers. So I'm not looking at St. Louis County with all of their providers. We have small numbers, which is a benefit because we can do a lot for this small number of people. But then we also have to be careful about what kind of data that we're tracking so that we can show if it's making a difference. So that's what our focus is, just kind of continuing this work and seeing how it grows and just systemically be able to support families more over these next years in Cook County. So that is, I think, all I have for you. There was just this last bit. This is one of my favorite quotes that Maria's talked about. the impact that these programs have had in just these 2 years on her program is amazing. I love the idea that because of these things, she feels seen and heard in the important work that she does. And I've spent time sitting on the floor at her house with her kiddos, and she does amazing work, really does. I'm grateful for her, for other providers. So is there any questions besides I've told you all the things that you have for me? Or anything you would like to see more information on, because I'm happy to be able to do that as well.
Nancy, one thing I think the commissioners would really appreciate is if we could get a copy of your PowerPoint.
Absolutely.
So we would have that specific information to share with members of the public.
And then our state legislators would appreciate that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What we could do is upload it to our Child Care Solutions website, so it's
Mhm.
available to the public.
That's a good idea.
Happy to send it out by email as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we can't solve it all, but we can work towards, veterans. And Mr. Yorkie's question about that state data
Mhm.
triggered a thought. I'm like, oh yeah, I bet you we need more in Cook County than the state average. But I'm really curious about the data when that comes out, just where everything lines up.
Mhm.
It's making sense.
Mhm.
So I know we can't solve it all, but it's
Mhm.
good to get perspective.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
Well, and just to clarify my previous comment too about the marketing, it was largely for recruiting more families into the county, is what my angle was. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it was also to recruit providers into the workforce. That was one of the beginnings of it.
Mhm.
Oh, no, yeah, that's your efforts and that's awesome, but what I'm saying is once we
Okay.
have
I see what you mean.
Mhm.
stronger, robust, provider base, when we have more slots,
Mhm.
if we're struggling to fill slots for whatever reason, we can be like, hey, we need childcare, we've got it,
Mhm.
versus
Well-
not everyone in the state does, so,
Mhm.
we're looking for more families to move.
Mhm.
Like a recruiting tool. We have housing, we have
Oh,
childcare.
that's right.
Right,
you
that's
know?
that's the other, that's the
Mhm.
flip side, yeah.
Yep.
But to be,
Exactly.
yeah, future thoughts.
Coming soon.
That's right, because those supports are so important for people who want to move here. They
Yeah.
have to know that they have
Mhm.
those sort of things to be able to accept a
Mhm.
job and to want to bring their family here. Absolutely.
And my angle on, getting our system up and going and having those slots, is huge, like you say, that's the base for this whole thing. I also feel like we need more supports for parents
Mhm.
so they can afford to do that. And I know that's on your radar and you're
It
working
is.
towards that, but that's just kind of, in my mind, next step.
It really is. And so how can we make that happen as well? Because the supports that are there really serve such a small population. I think it's very easy for us to say, oh, look, the legislature, they gave more money to early learning scholarships, they gave more money to CCAP.
Right.
That serves such a tiny population of people who are eligible. So I
No,
feel like
that's-
the
yeah.
working class people in here
Right,
are the ones
exactly.
who, it's such a struggle,
Yep.
right? You have to pay. If you have
Yep.
more than one kid, that's a lot to pay. And then you get to, you have highly qualified employees who really just cannot afford to work
Yep.
because it doesn't make any sense to have both parents working. And then so we think, oh, we need nurses, we need, public health people. And then if they can't be in the workforce, everyone is suffering. And so our whole county, that affects the economy in so many ways that.
Yeah, and I want to also respect those that don't want to have both parents
Yeah,
working.
exactly,
right?
absolutely.
I want to recognize that
Mhm.
not all kids should be in childcare, but I want our community to be able to offer that if
Yes.
that's what they need to do, or
Mhm.
if that's what's best for their family or whatever. So.
And we've had some conversations amongst this group about, are some families waiting to make those decisions about whether they are going to have another parent join the workforce to just see if this childcare is stable? I think that people have found in the past, maybe I have a childcare provider and then, oh, she's closing next week. Now it's so stressful to find someone to keep my kids. So let's just wait and see if these are going to really stick around. Then we will maybe entertain this idea of being able to have, both parents in the workforce. And I completely respect that as
Yeah.
well. So that's part of part of my task is to say, "Good, we're keeping it as stable as we can, right?
Part of it's also just people piecemealing it
That's
together.
it.
So there are providers who say, for my program's financial stability, it's much better to have a family enrolling their child 5 days a week. But if you're not eligible for scholarship funds, and we actually got this answer from Diane in Birch Grove we were talking through the public health fund application, but if families aren't qualifying for those funds, they might have a conversation within the family and say, I can't afford 5 days of care, but maybe I can afford 2 or 3. And then some programs will say, okay, and some will say, no, it's our policy. You have to have 5-day-a-week care because that's what's more, that's sustainable revenue.
Mhm.
You're not piecing 2 or 3 kids together in one slot. And so that's what I think a lot of families are doing,
Mhm.
trying to piece together a few days of care so that they're not paying the whole, $10,000 plus a year. Maybe they're paying 3 or 4 and they're just going a few days a week.
Mhm.
I think some
Commissioner, were you
families,
at Oh, you answered, it was about hosting.
Okay.
I think some families are in a dilemma of whether they want to have another child
Mhm.
Yes.
because of the childcare situation.
Mhm.
They have one, but they don't know.
That's it, yes, especially when we're looking for care for infants. And the cost modeling that they did, the cost of care for infants is huge, 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 huge. And so, when I see that, and I think the state, and that's what the recommendations are too, like the state is going to have to come in and do some kind of subsidy here because, or you're gonna have no one who can. But providers can't afford to have that kind of a ratio to provide that kind of care, and parents could not afford the cost of care that it would be, like you would have to be making 6 figures income to afford that kind of care for your infant, right? You might as well just have a nanny come in, but, so it's just not sustainable. So I'm hoping that, when the legislature comes back together, then there'll be more advocacy about like, look, here's the data you told us to get. We need to do something if we want to really be able to shore up this whole industry.
Commissioner Johnson.
So on that note about needing more state awareness of
Yeah.
what the needs are, and we have this quarterly newsletter that we send down to our legislator.
Mhm.
Have you written an article for that about this
I have
issue?
not.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
I think it would be timely
Okay.
to, I don't have that information currently of where you send it to.
Yeah,
Mayor,
if
but,
there's a form, I can share that with you.
Okay,
But I
perfect.
think that kind of information and explaining that thank you for what you're currently doing, but guess this is why it's not enough for us. And
That's it.
So I think
That's it.
this is a timely article
I
for
agree.
that.
And like I said, I think in this field, we're like, yep, cost of care, it's so expensive. But then to finally have the data to back it up is important, because we can say, how expensive is expensive? But when you see, you go, oh my gracious, I can't see how people are in this business. So that's why it's always a juggle for parents, juggle for providers, and we're supposed to be caring for kids and giving them high quality care, right? And even to try to give higher quality care, guess what? That has bigger costs. So that's kind of defeating the purpose of what we're asking providers to do, right? So I will be happy to write something up for that.
And in the meantime, we will have an article in the News Herald this week. Our County Connections column will be on childcare topics. You should all have that in your emails. Another thing that you can route in the meantime.
Thank you.
But I think, Nancy, your presentation is so powerful in demonstrating the deliverables after only 18 months of this pilot. We previously had fewer providers very centrally located in the Grand Marais area. Now we have more providers, and that's located throughout the county, from Tofty to Grand Portage. Not just toddler care, not just preschool care, but infant care, which is in such demand. And no closures is incredible. I mean, in my 10 years of leadership in this county organization, I, at least on an annual basis, have had conversations with employees about whether or not they can continue in their position because of a sudden loss of childcare, which has ripple effects on our
Yeah,
ability to
it
serve the
really
public.
does. Well, and if we just go back to think about Cooperation Station, I meant to look at the numbers and ask, but I didn't get to them. But when they had a closure and then it took us like 6 weeks to open, how many county employees' kids were at Cooperation Station? A lot. And just one small program, and how that directly impacts the county. A bunch of your county employees, Allison, Grace, and Adriana, and Amanda's, there's a bunch of different, employees who had kids at the cooperation station at some time.
Mhm.
And that, whether it's just on a couple of day basis, like we have to close because the provider's sick, or we're closed, good luck. That's a lot.
Maybe as a it's kind of relevant, I don't know if it's useful, but as an anecdote, my younger sister lives in Montana and has a 1.5-year-old boy, and she got a position that was fully remote with the Forest Service, doing grant reporting or reconciling or something, and it started at GS9, and I don't know if you're familiar with the federal GS system, but that's a pretty decent job, and I think when I started just as a grunt, it was like GS3 is kind of where you start out, but it was on this fast track that if you stuck with it over 2 years, you'd be up to a GS11, which is really nothing to sneeze at. And her husband has also worked for the Forest Service for years and years, and I don't know if he's like a GS8 or a GS9, but he's not necessarily in an advancement position. But how the federal system works is if you get to whatever GS, if you leave, when you enter, you start at that level. So she was like, if I can just make it through these 2 years, or whatever, to GS11, and she's done it. And so now they've been struggling to find a nanny. There is no childcare, so it's all just nanny stuff. Struggling, and so she's working remotely, but also has to like bounce the baby and all that stuff. And kind of gotten to the point where like, yeah, I just seems like I should quit, at least for now, while we don't have childcare and nanny. And it's just like that's a big decision and a big impact, and there's a lot of benefits to it as well, just having that time with your child, but it's just out of necessity basically, and it really puts people in a hard place. So I know people here are struggling with that as well, but because of your efforts, it's been the team's efforts, there's been a lot more success with navigating that, and hopefully we can just keep improving too.
Yeah, and I think you've given options.
Yeah.
Options for families.
Yep.
Is important so that you can put together what it is that works best for your family. And to recognize that that's different. It used to just be this, this was childcare. But now childcare can look so different. And I really appreciate having all the different ways to support it, right? Like we do the family friend and neighbor. If you want grandma watching your child, perfect. Then we're going to support grandma as well. It's not just like, sorry, you're out of luck. We don't support grandmas.
Right.
We're going to support that as well and
Yep.
have different. I think the state
Huge part
recognizes
of it.
that too, and being able to, we have to broaden our reach and support for providers wherever they are. They're caring for kids. And all the kids are going to end up where? Like in kindergarten, and they better all, we hope they're all at a similar place, right?
Yeah.
In their education.
Well, thank you all very much for your presentation. It was just amazing. And most of all, thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy.
Absolutely. I'll let you guys go talk about less fun things.
Oh, you saw that the budget was on.
I know, I heard that word budget, I'm out. I'm gonna go back upstairs and talk about kids.
Well, thank you all.
Thanks
Thank you so much
much.
for listening and your support and talking to the public out there and bringing concerns they have to us. That's just a huge part of this too.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Brady, if you'd like to join us at the table, we have space.
They're not that
and a
size
microphone.
anymore, though.
And even if you wouldn't like to join us, please do.
Is there going to be PowerPoints? Okay. then I'll do it.
Well, you can come down here because we have lots of space.
Correct. Yeah, so we don't need to do any switching on the board. Yep.
Oh, Grace? Got your jackets?
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I'm not going to plug in right away, so.
Thanks, Deb.
Okay, just as a, are we taking a break?
We're just getting a jacket to Grace.
Oh,
She left.
okay,
Oh,
great.
and this is.
This
That's
stays in the
ours.
room.
Okay.
It stays in
I
the
was going
room.
to give it to
Yeah.
Nancy. That is ours.
All right.
And everything distributed now?
Absolutely. Brady's on his way. Deb's on her way back.
All right.
So, we will move on in our agenda. agenda to item 3, which is fiscal year 2025 budget plan.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to start by checking in. Commissioner White, did you receive the materials from
Yes.
Thursday?
Yes.
Okay. I want to start by thanking you all for the great discussion that we had on Thursday. I thought it was a really great start to this process. Again, my intent and Brady's is to make sure that we're providing you with all the information you need to help us prioritize expenditures for the coming fiscal year. So I'm grateful to have started that discussion. What I'd like to do today, I did send out the spreadsheet that I showed at the last meeting. I was talking with Commissioner Johnson before the meeting started. This is very much a draft document. There are no doubt errors in it that need to be corrected. And that's why I haven't posted it publicly. I think it's because it's still a working document. I want us to bring it into better shape before we start sharing it more broadly. And I also want to make sure that before we publicize this document, that we have some chance to sort through priorities and make sure that it reflects what the board is wanting to do. So before going further, I also want to bring up something that was mentioned at the Public Health and Human Services Board meeting this morning, where one of you asked Allison McIntyre whether housing has been an obstacle to recruitment. And I think we all know it has been. One thing that we've talked about for a number of years, at least since I got here, is the idea that, most of the lodges and resorts up here have their own employee housing, and they do that out of economic necessity. They have to do that in order to be able to recruit employees. And we've talked about, gosh, it'd be nice if the county had some place for people to land after they accept a county job offer, so that they can get their footing in Cook County and look for a place to live long-term. That's something that we've nibbled at a little bit over time, but we've never really taken any action steps to achieve that. And so before getting too much into the discussion today, I did want to kind of put that topic on the table and get some feedback from you all, because we do have new housing coming into the community. The Gunflint View project is one of them. We've got the Heights project up on 61. So there is going to be rental housing available. And the question that I'm posing is, should we be budgeting to secure some leases so that we can provide housing to new employees when they get here on a limited term basis, right? This would not be a long-term arrangement, but something that we could offer as a way of getting people in the door here. Obviously, there'd be a cost to that, and there would also be times, I think, if we were to secure, say, a couple of apartment units, there might be times when those units would be empty because we wouldn't necessarily be assured that we would have somebody to move in there. We might hire somebody who's got family connections here, they've got housing elsewhere, but I do know that if we had that option available, it would help us address some challenges that we've had in recruitment. So just wanted to kind of put that out for general discussion, take the temperature, see how commissioners feel about that idea, and ask the question, should we be budgeting something next year for that purpose?
Commissioner Sterling, you were reading my mind when I asked that question. That's where I'd like to go,
Mhm.
talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible that we could do that here with the, right now, with the apartments that will be up and going, hopefully by early spring, I don't know the time frame. Yeah.
And a question I've been thinking about is how can the county, as well as other organizations, such as the school district, North Shore Health, all our organizations, look at this as an option for people that want to come to our community but need a temporary place to stay. So I would like to also have that conversation with other groups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels like the number one barrier, right? So if we can help address that number one barrier, we're going to go a lot further in our recruitment efforts. And I agree 100%. I think we need to do it with, I would suggest with the hospital, with the school. I'm open to other partners too, but those are the biggest ones that come to mind. But I think it's critical.
Clint, Sneak does have a couple of apartments for the weekend
Right.
physicians that come in. They did that quite a long time ago,
Mhm,
right? So
mhm.
they could help.
The Mason, the old
Visiting.
Masonic temple,
Yeah.
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 And yeah, and while I was on the hospital board, that there was reports about the success and what that actually did. It was night and day, just that they're able to, have people come. Otherwise, what are they gonna do? Hotels are full and, I don't know where it stands now, if there's any updates.
One thing that might be helpful for us as we think about this is to get some data maybe from HR as to how many offers have been extended where it was housing that was the barrier to someone accepting the position. But I think that would be really valuable information to get from Allison as we.
Mhm. And I don't know if our record keeping really would shed light on that. I mean, anecdotally, I'm sure Allison could speak to situations where that has been a factor. But I don't know that we have a spreadsheet that says declined offer because of housing. I don't think we're doing that. And maybe we should. The other thing is, I think probably it's rarely just one reason that causes somebody to decline a job offer, right? Like it might be childcare
Yeah.
in conjunction
Yeah.
with lack of housing, in conjunction with the cost of living here in Cook County. So to isolate that factor would be, I think, a little challenging.
Other questions or comments?
What kind of cost would, might this be?
Well, I
There's
mean,
other partnerships and, what we want to go for.
so, looking at rental prices of probably $1,500 to $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I mean, a single unit would be up to $24,000 a year. If we wanted to get a couple of units, that'd be, in the ballpark of $50,000. So, I mean, it'd be an expense for sure. It'd also give us a leg up on recruitment. Kind of like the childcare thing. I mean, it's costing the county money to provide these subsidies, but you can see there's an impact, so.
Yeah, I think I said this before, but I believe strongly that we can minimize the risk of vacancies if we partner. I guess we can also increase our risk of conflicts with the partners, right?
Mhm.
Because, no, we want this, no, we need this, whatever,
Mhm.
but I think that's a good way to find that balance of the cost and the risk.
Well, we're all sharing in the cost and we're all sharing the risk
Yeah.
if we have other organizations working with us.
Mhm.
Do we have any data through AMC on the number of counties that are providing housing currently?
It's a great question. I have no idea what that looks
Never
like.
heard of it.
So I think that would be something.
I'm actually, on Thursday and Friday, I'll be in Duluth for the Minnesota Association of County Administrators Summer Technical Meeting, and I can pose that question
That
to
would
them.
be fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you for the.
Followed up with the childcare subsidy.
Yeah.
All right.
So I've heard feedback from some of you, but not all of you. I'm wondering what others are thinking about this.
I think there could be a conversation with other entities.
Mhm.
I think there should be a conversation with other entities, and then perhaps the actual owners of, that we're talking about, maybe they could, in good faith, say, we'll cut the price for the governmental agencies to help get people into our county.
Mhm.
It's a conversation, perhaps a conversation would be warranted in what are the cost things. But when I think about, now you're saying that we'll provide housing, but that means that the folks they would pay their own rent.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is
And that's
correct.
like-
And then there might be some period during which the county would have to pay for a vacant unit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know that for at least the Gunflint view that we could be looking at, and Commissioner Johnson jump in for your thoughts as well as looking at any type of subsidy a builder might be able to provide, because already we are subsidizing a fourth of the units to be affordable. And they need to, they're really doing us a great service, but it's a really tight budget for them. So I just want to share that perspective from the HR. Anything you want to add?
I think this is a bigger conversation that maybe requires a committee with some partners, with more people, HRA people. First questions that pop into my head, well, how long do we let them stay? And guess what? There's no house they can afford after they get here. So then what? So I think there's a bigger issue. Yes, you need housing to land, but guess what? There's no place to move on to yet either. So how long are we going to let people live there when then somebody else quits in a different department and now we don't have a place? So I think there's a lot of questions that should be talked through with a group of people who can come up with solutions. Just like we had the child care subsidy committee, all giving input, and what didn't happen overnight. I don't know that we're ready today to say, let's add 50,000 to our budget without, how would it really work?
Right. The other thing about that, so I was just, that was a ballpark number, but as you point out, I mean, if somebody moves into the unit, we're not paying for their housing. They're going to start paying the rent. So at that point, the expense would zero out for the county. The other possibility is if we, proactively secure a couple of units for future employees, it could be, you're exactly right about the cost of housing, and that if somebody gets into an apartment, they're not necessarily going to, in a couple of years, be able to afford a house. But if we're able to get them into that apartment unit and they start paying rent, then for the foreseeable future, they would be able to keep living there. So at that point, the county's commitment could, we could transfer the lease over to the employee and it would be their lease. And maybe then, each year as there's an opening, we secure a unit.
Yes.
So, there are different ways to do it. I totally agree there need to be parameters around it, because, I'm not advocating for an ongoing financial commitment, but I think looking for ways to give people entry into Cook County as residents is something that we should be talking about pretty seriously.
I like that you put it that way, because the way my backwards mind was working was that, okay, yeah, we get the apartment, we get the employee in the apartment, and then when another apartment opens up and they move into that one, but it makes way more sense to transfer, and then we
Right.
But yeah, if we partner up with the other organizations and do that, I think that would really leverage a lot of, imagine teachers having a place to land, or nurses, or,
Law enforcement.
or law enforcement, or anyone, And then just, if there's an opening, nab it, and then one of those three organizations needs somewhere, that's my guess.
Short term, again, there'd be situations where the unit would be vacant for some period, but, we are doing so much recruitment. We've experienced. So I wouldn't expect that to be a significant expense, because we'd be getting people into those units pretty quickly, I would expect.
It's also hopeful, we've had inquiries on those units already, 10 inquiries, and they haven't even put a pipe in the ground yet. They're getting close to that. But there are also a number of inquiries that are by seniors who live in the county who are interested in going to some type of apartment situation where they don't have to care for their lawn, they don't have to shovel, they don't have to worry about the expense of plowing. And so hopefully their homes would then come on the market and would be available. So I think it's going to take a few years for us to see the dynamics of how all of this will work, but we have to start somewhere. I think starting the conversation now is really important. And I like your idea with other organizations.
One, pretending I'm Nostradamus here, okay, so the senior's home goes on the market, so then we get a $300,000 home, the second homeowner gets it. It's not really, unless the HRA buys it and puts it in a land trust or something. I mean, it's just like fighting the market. Putting it on the market is not gonna, I think, solve the housing issues. It's, the market is a reach for most everyone living there.
We have some interesting options with housing that are coming down the pike. So hopefully we'll have some models that are going to work really well for our community and other places. Hopefully our solutions to housing will be like childcare. It can be something that could eventually be replicated other places. Commissioner White.
Does the hospital and the school, do they have such employee turnover like we do here in the county?
The
I know
school
the
district
hospital-
has
the hospital-
until recently. Now they're pretty stable right now.
And the hospital always has lots of vacancies, always.
So, forgive me for not keeping this in the front of my mind, but the unsubsidized units are 15 to 2,000?
I'm throwing that out as a ballpark,
Yeah.
based on what I've seen, on the community page and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they aren't finalized yet. There are some things, let me see if I can.
Well, I'm just, the reason
Oh,
I'm
no problem.
asking that is because really, which employees are gonna be able to afford that? It's, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's.
So who's going to be able to afford that?
Well, it depends on, I'm thinking about like a family that needs at least a 2-bedroom versus like a single employee, they've got studios that are probably much less than that
Do they-
50.
I don't think they have two bedrooms.
Yes,
Oh, they do?
there's 2
They do.
bedrooms. Yeah.
But are there 2 bedrooms actually full bedrooms, or they're
They're-
one unit with a curtain?
No, they're full bedrooms. So they handed out drawings of the units at the groundbreaking, and they do have full 2-bedroom apartments.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah.
That
All right,
changes
so there are 12 2-bedroom units, or you could
Wow.
have 1 bedroom and a den, 24 1-bedroom units, and 15 studios. Now, the cost, let's see, there's some that will be affordable, so it depends again on the income.
It's like whether or not.
Well, what if somebody is hired by the county, it's gonna depend on their income, what kind of unit they would qualify for, and we have to think about what kind of price we're going to pay for. Are we gonna secure a 1-bedroom? Are we gonna secure a studio? Whatever, but an efficiency or what they call a studio, at that rate is $1,018. That's the affordable price. A 1-bedroom is $1,091, and a 2-bedroom is $1,309. Now, at the market rate, and this is as of today, this is not when they are actually rented out, $1,388 for a studio, $1,453 for a 1-bedroom, and $1,700 and change for a 2-bedroom.
As Commissioner Johnson pointed out, we need a little committee to work on this.
Yeah, I think
Pull
you're
all
right.
this together. We can't decide. It's good to have the conversation.
Should I make a motion? Just kidding.
Can't do that here, you know that.
That's
All
why
right.
that's why I was kidding.
But perhaps we can discuss that at our upcoming board meeting.
Yeah.
Well, and one other thing, is there are people that have houses. I mean, it's like, and they're thinking about, well, maybe I should sell or not sell, but there might be somebody who says, Grandma died, let's do it this way, my age. Grandma died, we don't need the space in the back anymore. Perhaps we could, why would they even mess
Rent it
with
out, or,
like, being
yeah,
part of the
take home.
county? Why even do that? They wouldn't need to be involved in a long-term lease.
It's community-minded people. They're out there, but I hear what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's-
Yeah, why
There
would
could
they
be-
want?
And there are also the possibility of deed restrictions for people selling houses, so they can be affordable and continue to be affordable. The attorney that has
Yeah.
worked with the HRA has put something together and has shared that with real estate agents,
Mhm.
real estate attorneys, so that if someone wants to do that, there is paperwork out there that models how they can approach that and keep it affordable because they are community-minded
Mhm.
citizens.
Yeah, we rent our places out for $1,200 a month, plus utilities, and they're both $3, because we want our friends and neighbors to be in there and be able to afford it. I think this might be our second year in the black, and it's not, it's in the black, it's not profitable. In the black by this much.
So, Madam Chair, with the pardon me, with the interest in creating a committee to explore this, just thinking about the timing of this and the process that would be needed, I think, for the board to reach a comfort level. It sounds like we're not thinking about putting anything into the 25 budget for this. Is that accurate? Because I think if we're going to have a committee process, that's going to take some time to go through, and the preliminary budget would have to be set at the first business meeting in September. So,
I'm really uncomfortable not putting anything in the budget. I think the need is immediate and obvious. We should put something, otherwise we're just spending out of pockets. We need to address this. I don't know what that is, but we need an inventory both of, and again, the committee needs to decide this, but you know, how many vacancies are at the school, how many vacancies are at the county, how many vacancies are at the hospital, and combine that and a matrix of like, okay, that might mean 1 month vacancy, or maybe as far as housing units are concerned. So then if we put that number in, and by 1 month I mean like a week or something, I don't know. I just can't imagine things just sitting there, but hard telling, I guess. That's
Well, one, it's not built yet.
touche.
I mean, it's not built yet,
Right,
so
right.
a lot of things can happen between
Yeah,
now and then.
Yeah.
The site's been
yeah,
cleared.
yeah,
There's a long ways to turning a key on the door.
good point.
The economy, I mean, the whole forces outside of our county.
Yeah.
but the expectation is that it will be. I mean, I thought, last I heard, they were hoping to.
Next spring.
Right.
Hope springs eternal.
No, I've
No,
done,
I mean,
I've done
not
projects and
to
I,
be facetious, but
no, you're right,
really,
you're right.
things happen
Yeah.
in,
They already have.
no,
Yeah.
but
Hello.
in production and delivery of goods.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I still think we should put together a committee now and start working with our community partners
Yes.
and working internally to gather information. And so I think it would be good to start now, even
Yes.
if there isn't something for the 2025 budget.
Mhm.
And
Commissioner Johnson.
I agree, and I don't know that it's so necessary to make sure to put a number into what we're looking at today for next year's budget, because if you, I've been digging in a little more, and you look at what Grady presented to us last week, and there was a substantial amount of money added to fund balance.
So we're
Yeah.
sitting pretty.
You know what?
Yeah, totally.
I hate to add more levy dollars when we already got that sitting there.
Mhm.
And if this committee gets together and says, yeah, we need 20,000 or 50,000 from each partner, whatever that number might be, it's not like we're broke. We're not
Right,
broke.
right.
Now, there are other needs out there too, I understand that.
Sure.
But it is not a need that we need to say, yes, we're gonna spend money on it today.
Yeah.
Let's have discussions and talk about it, and then make the decision.
And to be fair too, you're exactly right. I mean, we do have fund balance, and we likely use fund balance to keep the levy low. So it's not an either or. I mean, we could put a line item in the budget and agree that we're going to cover that with fund balance. And maybe we use it and maybe we don't. I mean, there'd be no harm in putting it in, because if we don't spend it, then it would just go back to fund balance. So, I mean, but that's your decision again. You're the policymakers, and so I'm just looking for guidance here.
I would rather put a line in the budget, but from fund balance, and then maybe we don't need to use it, but just having a placeholder there for the awareness and the intentions, you know, a paper trail.
So, and I'm more of the opposite, because I see things in here that got put in there and that never got taken. So I just like the accountability of it being separate than just adding it somewhere. I want to have the discussion first if it's worth it,
Oh,
and then put it in.
okay.
For the clarification, David, so what you're saying is we'll subtract that amount from fund balance, and then we'll make a new line item with that same amount. Okay, fund balance. Take $20,000 from the suggested fund balance line and make a new line that says potential housing costs, 20,000. Like you just have a new, you would absolutely reduce so that it would not impact levy at all.
Correct. Yeah,
Correct.
I think that's because of just the state of the fund balance. And just when you're budgeting, you just say what your costs might be and then where that money is coming from, right? And I would fully support fund balance coming from, because of the health of it. But I'm great with having the committee go through things and trying to get a better idea there. I don't think it's going to be a stressor on the budgeting process if it's a late add or after the fact add because it's from fund balance. But,
Well, let's add this to our agenda discussion and have commissioners thinking about if you'd be interested and available to sit on a committee. But I think that's something we should look at.
And just for further clarification, so the partners that you're talking about would be ISD, the hospital. You said the clinic already has employee
it's the
housing.
hospital that does
It's the
it.
The
hospital.
hospital.
Oh, okay.
And how
So it would
about
be Sawtooth
city?
Okay.
Sure.
City.
I mean, these are the governmental, these are the
Yeah, I
taxing
would say all
authorities.
public, yeah.
Yeah, the border division too.
Oh, Border Patrol.
Forest Service, Border Patrol. Border Patrol is a huge.
Huge.
And they have a huge, they
Yes.
need housing.
So we'll probably just take all 50 or.
We'll build a unit up in,
That would be the second building.
Yes.
I have feeling some hesitation about involving federal agencies on this. And nothing
Sure,
against our
sure.
federal
Yeah,
partners,
yeah, no,
but I
it's
just, I mean, they're not as nimble as we are.
Yeah.
They just aren't. And so, you know.
For years, the Coast Guard station transfer was dependent on housing. That's not the case anymore, so. I think, and it was just like, and that was just dependent on like.
Local partners.
A gun locker or something was like the main requirement for the house. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that feedback. So what I want, yeah,
so we'll kind of not worry about the Border Patrol people at this moment. We'll stay with our own county entities, not the federal entities.
that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'm on board with that, but, you know,
But what about DNR? Well,
I know, that's what I was.
but they can figure it out themselves.
Kinda,
I mean,
except they
if,
can't.
but when it's the units, when the units are available,
Yeah.
Oh, this is not.
that's where
Well,
the people.
they may wind up taking some of those units on their own.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's worth
Different.
talking with them, just maybe to suss them out, you know? I mean, I think about, at least, and things have probably changed a lot, but when I first came to Cook County, it was with the Forest Service, and it was basically a feeder for the community. There's so many people who came here because the Forest Service, and they haven't been able to find housing, and so it hasn't had that feeder effect. So I think there's a lot of value there, but the complexity of it, yeah, it's next level for sure. It's maybe worth talking about what the needs are and maybe not committing to anything, but just that knowledge, I think, would be valuable.
That's what the committee can do.
Yes.
I'm going to have to move. The cable I got from MIS is not exactly the right one.
So you do you need the microphone?
I will. So what I'd like to do next is go through, let's see. Hang on a second. HDMI 2, that should be it. Just a moment, please. There it is, okay. Okay. So a few things. You received a lot of paper copies of different documents. Commissioner Johnson, I heard you reference one of those. And what I'd like to do today, first of all, again, I'll say this is very much a draft document. And so, how do I get rid of that? Let's see here. Okay. So it's very much a draft document. To the extent that you've gone through this spreadsheet and you've seen errors, things that need to be corrected, I'd like to address those today and make sure that that this spreadsheet is in good shape and that accurate. As I was going through it, I actually found some things that I had questions about too, and I haven't had a chance to sort through those yet. So we'd like to talk about this sheet and then also any other handouts that you received that you have questions about or you've found things that need to be corrected or updated. This would be the opportunity to sort through those. So having said that, I'd just like to ask the question, as you've gone through the information that we shared on Thursday, I did hear that you all are wanting more detail on contractual items. I emailed all the department directors, and I'm getting that information right now, and I should have that available before the board meeting on Tuesday. And so that will be available. And then, again, just trying to update this, I should mention, too, and we haven't heard back yet from ClearGov, but we have sent them all our information from IFS. So we are hoping to get that file back, and I'm hoping that very shortly we can start working out of ClearGov as we're continuing this conversation. So, Brady, I don't know if you've heard anything back from Frank?
Yeah, just that they did upload it.
Oh, they did load it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't get into this morning to look,
Okay,
but
okay. So we'll start looking through that and hopefully be able to share that and work with it the next time that we meet with you. So I'll just open it up then to questions. And I know who's probably got the most feedback, so just go for it.
Well, I have a question with Attorney Picken here that I'd like to ask. I'm looking at the law library. That is, let's see, I'm looking at line item 42.
Before we start
Mhm.
there, I'd just like to point out the columns M and N titles are reversed.
Okay.
So in case nobody else caught that.
Yep.
Nice.
Which line?
So I'm
Can you give me
looking
the
at
account
line item
number?
42, which is dues and subscription.
Yep.
And it looks like we're going from having $7,000 in the budget down to $50 in the budget. And that's a wonderful reduction. I'm wondering how that happened.
That looks like an error. I had requested $6,500.
Oh, it's the photocopy line.
Yeah, $50 in supplies, which is $6,405, and $50 in other supplies or small equipment, which is $6,410.
Okay.
And then again, these are just raw data from IFS, so.
All right, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right, other questions?
Okay, yes. Another error that I found was down in 392, 393, it's the solid waste transfer station, and, well, it's probably not the line item. I wrote the account number, because I go by account numbers.
I'm sorry, you said line 292?
No, if you go down to solid waste transfer station, so it's, oh, I have to go back because I fixed it on mine.
Which account number is it?
It's between 392 and 393.
Okay.
Oh, so line item 6, well, I put it between 685 and 692.
All right.
I fixed it on mine. 392 had fees recycling in the wrong section. I have to go back to the original. So line 668 in what we got sent
Mhm.
shows fees recycling revenues of
Right.
56,000. That really should be under the recycling, down on 674, because the account numbers are different. That took me a while to figure out why are these numbers off? So it's just a formatting issue there.
Nice.
And I would like to go back and start at the top with county commissioners.
Mhm.
And notice that under personnel services, we have a 2.2% increase. And I'm wondering how that number was chosen for our personnel, for our salaries.
I thought we applied a 3% factor to all personnel expenses. Yeah.
And that was what I
Yeah.
thought, so I
Yeah,
was
I
just,
think we all-
why,
Yeah, I'll
I
find.
just was curious why this one wasn't the same.
Mhm.
And then I wanted to go down to where we have suspense dollars, and I'm just curious what that line item is intended for, because.
You're just gonna have to wait.
No other department gets suspense, and I want to
Suspense
know,
dollars.
why did we get a suspense?
It's very exciting.
It's just it's a statutory allowance, and you don't have to take it, you don't have to have a budget for it. It's just, and it's been in that budget for forever.
And we don't say
Doesn't need to
anything,
be
so
there.
I'm like,
So-
this is one of those things that
Yeah.
get added, and we don't ever use it, why do we have it? Why do we budget 2,000 for it?
And I can answer your first question.
Yeah.
So the commissioner's salary, I didn't go back and find it yet, but very likely, it probably it is 3%, I'll double check that. But you also have your per diems are included in that.
Oh, okay.
And so that's going to, because that's set, that's one,
Right.
that doesn't go up and down, so you're not actually going to see a 3% because you have 10,000, 10,000, and then the salary change.
Okay.
But I'll still check.
Okay,
Thank you
that
for
makes sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
actually, I thought, oh, maybe we should pull that out so we can track that.
Yeah.
But then I realized that that would be the payroll, and I wasn't going to suggest that. You can tell Nick, I won't ask for that.
This time.
But then, something else in.
Commissioner training
That's
Oh.
one that I had written down.
for contract services? Yeah.
Commissioner training.
No, well, the printing, and what do we print? I know that some, in other years, we
That
sent out a.
Printing is a misnomer. It's really publishing in the newspaper.
Okay.
We've never changed the title of it.
That actually was on my list
Yeah.
of all departments. What's the difference? Because we have a photocopy line and we have a printing line. Really, what's the difference? So
Yeah.
when a department has a printing line, it is most likely ads or something like that. Is that what
It's
we're-
publishing in a newspaper, yes.
The way also, I mean, we do get a lot of requests from commissioners for handouts for meetings and stuff like that. And so those get printed on the administration printer. And in order to charge those to the commissioners' fund, we have to enter a special code. And if we don't do that, and so like, it's an extra step. And frequently, when we print something for a commissioner, it just gets charged to 65 administration. So
I think it's good that we have it separated out. As a person who asks for some of those handouts at times, I'll contact Jana and say I'm going to do a presentation, and I have 50 people attending, and she'll print out 50 copies. So that's an example.
And those can be significant. I mean, if it's like a 10-page handout for 50 people, that's 500 copies. So it adds up.
Yes, I was just curious of what the difference was there.
So you are tracking that, right?
We,
Are we tracking it by department?
well, so by default, if Jana hits print on a job, it gets charged to our department unless we go to the printer and enter a different code.
And
So we need a code for us. So
Well, you have a
it's
code
separated.
for you,
Right.
but again, it's an extra step in the printing process, and we sometimes forget to do that.
And how many other prints are requested going through your office?
Well, I mean,
Other
I don't know that
departments?
number offhand, but we get a statement every month or every quarter from the auditor's office, and it shows exactly how many
Oh.
copies we printed.
Used to be 0007. I don't know, with the new printer,
Oh.
that's changed for commissioners.
And we did figure your increase at 3% for 2025.
So, but somebody mentioned the training budget, and again, we put that in as a placeholder. It's something that's called
Yeah.
out in the strategic plan, but lots of room for discussion on that.
I think that's something that we'll need to have a broad discussion about, because it impacts not only
Yeah.
commissioners, but all departments. And we need to come up with some method of prioritizing training. And I think it's really important. I'm glad it's in our strategic plan. But I think we're going to need to work towards having this as a regular line item at that level. I think it's going to start small. We're going to take small steps. That would be my recommendation.
And I'm good with that. How would that look to you?
I guess I would need to spend some time looking at the types of training we do. AMC has started to list trainings that are coming up for 2025. So I guess I can look at costs, would be happy to do that. And we were having a discussion earlier about making sure that when we're going to trainings, maybe one or two commissioners are going for things like the policy committee, not all of us. Land use training, one person coming back, or two people with cannabis information. But again, it's something we can send a couple of representatives to do rather than all of us. And I think we're all very much in agreement with that. I think our annual conferences are really important for all of us to go to. There's a lot of shared knowledge, opportunities to network with other counties, find out other questions that we have about how other counties are doing things. So I think our annual conferences, we should still all attend together, but that for these other more quarterly things, we can have one or two representatives attending on all of those.
Yeah, and, as far as our broader training picture, what was it, 150,000? Is that what that placeholder was? I mean, every job is different, and I think it's really important to train people into those positions, but I think there's a lot of value in just having that broad training for a group of 30 people, and that cost is not going to be nearly the same as like having an individualized job training. So we can really leverage like the group rate sort of thing. Again, maybe working with partners, if there's other topics that touch on other organizations, leadership or whatever. But we can also have department heads or a cohort of other staff. So.
Or bringing training, like tribal training,
Yes.
to the county so that we can everybody can stay here, they don't have to go and pay for meals and hotels. We pay to bring someone here, which is a higher cost, but over the long run, it's a lot lower cost.
It could be like a factor of 10 reduction, if we.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to point out, it's a little after noon, and some of us have 1 o'clock meetings, I believe. So are you all okay with going till, say, 12:30? Because I'd like to get additional feedback from you guys. Okay.
All right, other questions? Yeah. I do too.
So I don't
Go
care
ahead,
how you want to do
Commissioner
it.
Johnson. Go ahead.
Well, next on the list is court admin, and we are reducing that. And I'm just wondering if our contract changed with the 6th District Court, or are we handling all that differently
No,
than we
that's
used
a
to?
Molly question. I entered that number based on usage. We're not spending the 20.
And that's what
That's all.
In which category of court
the
administration?
court admin, which would have been
That's the
Kim's-
court-ordered,
Yeah.
yeah.
Position?
We're just simply not spending as much as we were.
Yeah, so it's kind of out of our control how much we spend because the statute requires counties to pay for representation for both parents who have who are brought into the child protection system, and for the attorneys who represent people who are committed as mentally ill and chemically dependent. Oh, and guardianships too. If a guardianship is filed, then we have to pay for their attorney. So it always depends on the number of cases and or the complexity of those cases. If it goes on and on.
In 2023, we spent 11,567, and at half of this year, we're at 6,500, so it'd be 13,000 for a year.
Okay,
Times
I
three.
just want to, because we hear about, there's more of those cases.
Yeah.
And we're having, at Public Health and Human Services hearing, there's more issues with out-of-home placements.
Mhm.
It makes me say, okay, I just want to make sure we are,
Yeah.
Budgeting enough.
well, yeah, and I was just because we've
And-
been budgeting 20,000, we went down to 18, it went back up to 20, I don't know why.
Yeah.
And now we dropped, so I'm
Yeah.
just curious the reason behind all that.
Yeah, I think it sounds like Brady usually just estimates that number on the last few years of usage or the last year of usage.
That's-
And not every, we have a lot of, there's been this drastic increase in maltreatment reports, and the response to maltreatment reports requires added resources of social workers, but not every case goes to court. Those are the ones that can't be resolved by a voluntary response. So they don't necessarily correlate.
Okay, I just wanted clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Going down to the assessor then, and I'm wondering if we got an answer about,
Yeah.
That
He's,
one?
yeah, he's putting aside 18,000, I don't have the exact word in front of me, 18,000 plus for that reassessment for the BWCA. All three of the counties are doing that. He wanted to
18,000?
put it into his budget. and then we'll be reserving that.
And I've heard from Bob recently, he's been talking with the other two counties, and it looks like the cost of having that appraisal done could be significantly higher than what we thought. So, but that's still, I mean, he's actually going to be meeting with them again, I think, in the next few days to further discuss that. So we'll have more feedback on what that cost might be.
So we might adjust it up a little.
Yeah.
And what do you think our odds are of that actually working, of convincing the federal government, especially in our political climate right now?
Much greater than not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that is the alternative, right? If we don't do it, then we have no information to counter any arguments that they put forward.
Yeah, we
So-
would, without the three counties pushing back, we'd be getting about $1,275,000 or something. That was their initial. Instead of the $1,600,000 or more, $630,000 based on federal sequester. But, yeah, so an additional $350,000 to $400,000 a year.
Decent return.
So if we move down to GIS, Department 60, they have a capital purchases line and a GIS capital project expense. And I'm just wondering what the difference between those two line items are for.
Well, the capital purchase are, equipment, all of our computers, et cetera. And the GIS, I don't know the details of the projects. We'd have to ask Rowan, but I know he and Kyle. But I know that there are a couple of projects
Yeah,
going on.
I know offhand that one of the projects they're working on relates to vacation rentals and being able to, for the public, being able to pull up a map to see where they're located, get information on them. So that's connected to GIS.
There was one where it's like track your commissioner, and so it'll just.
Well, good luck on that one with me.
To folks
Yeah.
listening, that was a joke.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Oh, moving on to administration.
Mhm.
And this is between administration and HR. Both have staff development, and I am just wondering. So staff development for administration is 6,000, and then the staff development for departments. And I'm just wondering.
That again is just that training placeholder, so
So when it's in the administration is for
that's
just
for our three
your
staff.
department?
Correct,
And-
correct.
Okay, I
Yep.
just want to clarify.
Yep.
That's a different thing, it's later. Oh, I have like a general question about telephone and communications, the communications line telephone, and the difference in the departments of who gets a telephone, who pays for it, are these private phones, are they county phones?
It
Yeah,
varies.
did it run through? So we have a mixture?
My guess is right now, most people are using their own phone, and they have a plan. And then what comes through on the voucher is they send, here's our monthly plan cost, and the department is paying a portion of that for their use of the phone all year long.
And you don't, my understanding is you don't have to do that. The department would provide you a phone if you needed one for the job,
Yeah.
but it's just like having two phones.
Most people
versus
don't want
having-
two phones.
Right.
Right.
They don't want to deal with that.
And that's just for calls. If you're using Outlook on your phone, then it's a county phone. And so not everybody gets a county phone. It's based on business need.
And so would it be the GIS department I talked to about that policy and.
When you say GIS, you mean MIS?
MIS.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know there was a separate GIS budget, where is this now?
GIS mapping in my head, sorry.
No, no.
You're right, it is
Okay, just
MIS.
making sure.
Mhm.
Um,
So not every department does that, you know, we don't do that kind of work on off hours and weekends, but the sheriff's department does, MIS does.
Policy.
We don't have one departmental, there isn't a county-wide single
Okay.
I thought we,
policy. I
thought we got that,
Okay.
but I'm not, you should know better
I-
than me.
well,
I kind of remember a discussion.
I remember
I don't
dis-
find it,
Mhm.
and-
I remember discussions, I didn't remember that there was
Yeah.
and there may be a policy, I'm not sure that, that say the exact dollar amount for in each department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll look at-
I
we can
brought
look
up,
at that.
looking at creating a policy because I was interested in commissioners having, a different phone number, rather than our personal numbers being out there for the world, that we would have a number, and I understand you can actually put it on your current phone. There's a way to have two numbers attached to your phone. Just, other counties do that, not all other counties. It's, again,
Yeah.
like 87 counties in Minnesota, 87 different ways of doing things. But that was one of the things I was thinking, as commissioners, we might explore is how could we get a second number on our cell phone
Mhm.
so that that would be just for our county business? Because we do get evening calls and weekend calls. That's probably the majority of the calls that we get. So that was something I was going to bring up to potentially include in the budget. So I guess I should talk to MIS about how that might be done and what would be the cost.
So if there is a telephone policy, can you send that on to
Yes.
us and
Mhm.
we can review it and
Sure.
I will understand how it really works? Because it actually on the LEO board, we discussed we need a policy for employees having personal data.
Right.
Yeah.
on their
Yeah,
phone. So
and- right, exactly. We
I
don't-
know how Cook County works.
We don't want that situation. If you're using your phone for work purposes, if you're, texting for business reasons or doing email on your phone, then you should have a county phone. But again, it's based on business need, so.
So that was why I was curious about different amounts for different departments, and
Right.
I didn't know how it worked, so.
Yep.
Was a general one, and these are more specific questions for department.
If there are more specific questions that we need to follow up on, I can just take your questions and get answers before the next business meeting, if that's helpful.
I think those are my main, just general, some of the other ones are a little more detailed than I'll discuss.
I had a more detailed question about veteran services, and I noticed that, let's see, veteran services.
It's going to be down at 375.
Yeah. So, looking at the line item for office supplies. And this is probably something I just need to connect with Karen about, but it goes from $300 to $1,000. And so I was just curious why there was that much of an increase. Have we discovered more veterans in Cook County than we thought we had? And are we sending out mailings to those individuals, or are we doing something different than we've done in the past?
I think that's probably part of that, just based on my conversations with Karen. I think she's reaching a lot of people who previously have not used her services, who use that department's services.
Yeah.
So it's probably part of it, but.
Okay. I'll double check with her, but I know she has reached out to new vets.
Yeah, I question that one too, the difference between, I know that internally, office supplies and then central supply, but that it would be that large of an increase in both of those.
Mhm.
I just did a quick search.
Commissioner, you're saying that central supplies has also gone up significantly?
Yes.
Okay.
In 2019, we passed a mobile device policy.
2019?
March 26th. Or that's when the memo was, I'm not sure which. Or maybe that was just a proposal, I thought. But it's got the whole
Mobile?
mobile device policy. And it's 11 pages long.
Commissioner Sterling, did you have some specific questions? Commissioner Warren?
No.
I had a question under the county jail, under dues and subscriptions, which is line item 548. And again, there, it just was an increase from $400 up to $1,000. And that's something that I can get information. So I can contact Nicole.
Commissioner, we'll get that information for you.
Okay.
Well, I think in everything from the cost of apples to all of these printing and everything is going up, so I'm not that disturbed that it went from where it was to 1,000 with any of this. And then we have the little hidden descriptions that Brady
Yeah.
knows about.
No, go ahead.
We have not yet included the request from Parks and Trails Commission for the additional staff time there.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And I have a question about the enhanced 911 account. If you go to
Ross 5.
about 208. It's above where we just were.
All right.
Mhm,
208.
mhm.
Payroll. Whose salary does that apply to?
Kyle does some work on the,
Okay.
yeah, through GIS with the addresses. And so I think it's fairly standard, so they, just part of his payroll, 15%, I believe, goes over to 208.
And that brings up another one that I was wondering about as far as our land commissioner and our assessor, and
Mhm.
how those accounts are personnel. We've got some personnel in land commissioner, but it hasn't been maybe tracking. I don't know how it works with payroll. Land commissioner, what's the account number?
Account number 391 is land commission.
And if you're looking at the line items, it starts with 631.
And so when you look at what we proposed as the budget and what was actually spent in '23, and I understand we're moving that position around. I just want to understand, so does that mean when I look at the assessor's budget, it's 61,000 less than, or how are we accounting for one person doing two jobs?
So you're looking at 391, correct?
Yes.
It's the trails coordination.
So that is not, land commissioner is the Trails and Parks position?
That's the Trails and Parks
Okay, that's-
position, yeah.
When I'm thinking land commission and we have
That's
land.
what I was thinking.
So
It
I
was-
just want to make sure.
Yeah, it was in that dual role in that department a few
Okay.
years back.
So that's why the 23 actual numbers is only 10,000.
Versus the approved of 41,000.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? And now we jump to 61. So it's not the land commissioner or whatever, how do we title that? It's Parks and Trails.
So we should just change the.
Yeah.
I betcha there's more than just the Parks and Trails.
Well, yeah, what is his new title? We gave him a new
No,
title.
I think Bob is the land
He
commissioner.
is.
Bob's the land
And so I
commissioner.
betcha there's a part of it, I just don't know how it's broken out.
Well, that's what
the
I would
question,
like clarification on when we say land commission. And it's 391, which makes you think it's in Tim's
That's-
department.
Yeah, we just need
But wait a
to
minute.
correct that title in 391.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in IFS differently, but it's in that Excel version as the old name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have there been discussions at the Budget and Facilities Committee about that position?
There has.
We have not.
I feel like we're kind of getting behind the times with that discussion.
It's
It can
something.
only get too late.
Well, I mean, we can certainly insert that
Yeah.
if there's a desire
I
to.
think we need to have some communication between
Okay.
Land Services and, I guess, Land Commissioner
Mhm.
and yourself, just what that request is exactly, what amount, and maybe it hasn't been figured yet exactly, but I think we should have a good enough idea to get something in there.
And that would be increasing a half-time position to a full-time position, which would leave still a half-time position. Like right now, that half is part of a full-time position,
Yeah.
right? That's Mitch.
Yeah,
And so if we make that a full-time position, then we've got this half-time position left, and those are hard to fill.
well, it's in a department with retirements and a lot of shakeup, so that might be a big part of why something hasn't come forward yet, just trying to
Mhm.
figure out, okay, how is this gonna work and fit?
Mhm.
But what I'm saying is, hey, we're kind of getting along in the game here, we should be including something.
Well, a request went out for, we all saw the list
Mhm.
of, hey, these are the new things that are being requested, and that wasn't on the list. So,
Well, and that list was not comprehensive either. So, I mean, I know that's been discussed at that committee,
For years.
right? So, I mean, that's, that's in the board's purview to consider.
Well, I think it's probably, I bet you anything, it's because of the dynamics within the department. That's just like, okay, who's coming, who's going, when, timing, how are we gonna fit this, what can we put together, what can we eliminate, all that kind of stuff. So,
Mhm.
but I'm just thinking like time is getting on here, we gotta make some progress on that conversation one way or another.
well, I'm going to disagree again. But when we looked at that list and a 12% levy increase with just that little bit of list, and I've heard two things now that let's add more to it. I'm going to keep advocating. We've got to keep our levy low, and we need to differentiate between wants and needs. And this is the year to focus on needs.
I really liked what Engineer Haas and Lisa shared with us when we met last week, because they gave us everything. But then we said, what are your priorities? And their top priority was equipment. And I think for other departments, finding out what the requests are, but then also having priorities is important for us to know.
And I'm just going to raise, when I'm going through this and realizing, I had asked that we start with a zero-based budget.
Mhm.
That we have last year's, this is what it would take to just move on doing exactly the same thing, considering our COLA negotiated expenses and what we've already said we are going to fund in 2025. And then seeing the list that got sent out of new requests. The fact that the assessors, $18,000 I have to ask or find that, to ask that question. When we go through this budget process and we're trying to make decisions and evaluate new things or different things, I just would appreciate if the department heads would have, when they gave you that number, said, hey, it's going up and this is the reason why we have, and add it to, this is a new thing, because.
And we have in past budget cycles,
Yeah.
and again, we haven't gotten to a point where we've got like a draft budget book to share with you. But we have had a form where we say, departments, please tell us if there's something changing in your budget, what is it, how much is it, what's it for? And so we have been providing that information. And I agree with you. The board should have that. When I sent out the email to departments requesting that they send me a list of any new items or big changes in their budget, that was the purpose of that, is so the board would have that information. And again, the list wasn't complete, but it's not because I didn't ask for it. So.
Yeah, and I just like to say thank you to those who responded, so that we don't have to spend hours digging through saying, I wonder what that one is.
And that's also why I color-coded the changes, so that'd be easy to see where the changes are. I mean, we're doing this in a transparent way so that you guys can easily see what's changing and where the increases are.
Commissioner Sullivan, what I thought you were going to say about the Highway Department's presentation was just the grant funding. Because that's what we talk about with the Parks and Trails Commission. We need someone to write the grants, right? Who can do that? A part-timer who's got, we need that position to get the more money, So we talk about the snowmobile bridge that was washed out. We think about the pincushion, or just all the bike trails, just all the trails up the trail in the winter. I mean, these organizations are not best suited to go after that funding. And if we had a central county parks and trails person that can go after grants for the different organizations and partner up with those groups, it can really leverage our trails economy. And I think that would benefit our community greatly, both on the health side of things as well as just the economic side of things.
The other thing that we need to wait on is negotiations, and I don't know how that's coming along. If there's going to be significant.
It's in progress. We've started with 2 of the units. The third unit, which is the 49ers, their business agent had some medical issues that have slowed down that process. So, but we do want to get to agreement before you guys have to set the preliminary levy. So that's still the goal.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, one of the other thoughts at the Parks and Trails Commission too was just about the changes that are being talked about at the community center or the courthouse, and just different ways that things can fit together. And so a Parks and Trails director, where is the best spot for that person? Is it with an outdoor active living sort of thing? Is it with ordinance enforcement, or is it with the assessment? It's just, where does it best fit? I don't know if I shared this with people too, but when we're talking about the EDA, the golf courses under discussion and reviewing what our options are there. I think if there's consensus that it's maybe not an economic development purview thing, that's not the expertise, but the Parks and Trails director could much better manage a golf course. I mean, that's much more that purview. So as we go through transitions, if it does stay a public course, it would fit better elsewhere, in my opinion. But the city is not interested in taking that on, but boy, they have that expertise too. So it's just trying to find all those pieces and fit them together in a better way. So I bet you that's a part of why it hasn't been officially brought to your desk too.
1 o'clock, it's 12:30. Remember, I was having a meeting at 1 o'clock. But I would request that if we have questions, that can either go to Administrator Yorkie, or if there are specific questions that might need to go to a department head, that we get those questions out there so that we can get the responses back and continue our discussions.
And I've taken notes, and I'm sure Brady's taken
Yeah,
notes on the
taken notes.
comments that have been made here today, and we'll incorporate those changes.
And I would say CC both of us.
Okay.
We send something
For sure.
back.
Great.
For sure.
We go back and forth, and
Yep.
it would save time.
Absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much.
I'm going to hand these out. We don't have to, there isn't a lot of information on the first quarter general fund report, but, yeah, we've got it there, especially on the revenue side, but, so I don't expect you to have any questions now, but you, as long as I printed it out, then
We'll
I'll get it
review
with you.
and get back to
See
you.
if you have any questions.
Thank you. All right, well, with that, we have on minutes of a number of our standing committees, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.